notification. So just bear that in mind if you do want to ask any questions at the end, that you will be being recorded, and we'll share this on the blog along with all the other previous events there. Hello, Yasmin. Yeah, so I'm going to hand over to Cassie, but please do continue to chat. Try to keep these informal. So welcome to talk in the chat as we go and tell us who you are. But with that, I'll hand over to you, Cassie, if that's all right.
Thanks, Nick. And hello. Oh, sorry, we've got Simon. We've got this twice in our room.
You okay?
Yeah.
I've just stopped sharing my slide share as well, so you can
yeah, that's fine. So before I start sharing my slides, I just want to introduce myself. So I am the Digital Development Officer in the Digital Creativity and Cultures Hub at the University of Leeds. So colleagues from Leeds and also beyond Leeds may not know what that is. So we are a relatively new department, and we kind of facilitate and support research that is either kind of digital in nature, in that it's working with digital objects and collections, it's working digitising, engaging in digital creativity, or digital methods. And often this is humanities research, but not exclusively. So that's kind of part of what I'm here today. Is Nick has kind of given me the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we do in the DCCH, and that is where our interns, Sam and Lili, have been working on projects kind of related to that remit. So if I can just share, there we go, my PowerPoint slideshow, and hopefully what you can now see is should be
So we can see a website, is that?
Sorry, no, this is not
Not right.
Not right. Bear with me. I'll
just be the
turn
window
that one more time.
The window you choose in front.
Yeah, no, and sorry, it's because we opened it before. There we go. Open it up now, and I should be able to share it without too much complication. My job has digital in the title, just to remind you all that while I struggle with my technology. Okay, so the slideshow. So this is got it. So this is just our website, actually. So if you forget everything I'm saying now, you can go to our website. It's dcch.leeds.ac.uk, which kind of summarises what we do, how we support research, who the team is, which is there's 3 of us in the team at the moment on kind of different fractional contracts. So we're quite a small team, and a lot of what we do, really, which is described on the kind of About Us page, is about facilitating, connecting, supporting research and researchers who work with digital collections, or who want to work digitally with collections, who are using digital tools and methods in their kind of humanities adjacent research. So it's not necessarily always from the Faculty of Arts and Humanities, but quite often we're finding people who are working with kind of humanistic research questions, but in computational ways. In terms of the support that we offer, it's really, we offer kind of consultation on projects to help people understand their needs around digital projects. So sometimes that's because people don't know what tools or methods are appropriate. Sometimes they know exactly what they need, but not how to access it within the infrastructure of the university. We do kind of bits of training and workshops around skills development. So we've got one coming up on transcription archival skills, for example. We're working with the Gale Digital Scholar Lab on things like text analysis using their platforms. And we're looking forward to 2024 in developing more of those kind of workshops and potentially collaborating in the region as well, looking hopefully ultimately towards kind of data commons and those kinds of ambitions. But we are a very new centre, and a lot of what we do is kind of signposting to people like Nick, saying, oh, you're generating data in your project, have you spoken to research data management, directing to kind of Rachel and Nick's team, or you're conducting, you want to make this research open, what's the best way to do this, and again kind of directing to that team and trying to promote that kind of cross-disciplinary and cross-service working. So we've had a series of events this year that are focused on kind of applications and limitations of generative AI in research and pedagogy, events around kind of understanding machine learning, AI and archival data and the possibilities there as well. And we've got an upcoming symposium in the next academic year, which is focusing on kind of critical approaches to AI, particularly with the view of the kind of majority world. So that's kind of building on events. We've had a kind of majority world's digital humanities that we had in May. We're going to kind of focus on AI for that symposium. So as part of our work in wanting to promote interdisciplinary working and new ways of engaging, particularly with collections, this year we've been fortunate to be funded by the Footsteps Foundation, which is a University of Leeds alumni, for 10 internships, quite kind of hefty internships across the year, actually, kind of 1 day a week in term time, it's roughly worked out as, which we put on 5 project strands. And 4 of those relate specifically to library collections, one a little bit different. So I'm going to talk in more detail about those in a moment. What we do kind of in more detail with supporting research is often we are fielding queries.
Sorry, Cassie, I don't want to interrupt. There was just people commenting. We can see your notes, etc.
Oh, can you?
Go to your display settings. So I wasn't going to interrupt you, but then I saw your notes, so I thought.
Okay, doesn't matter. The notes aren't secret. So a lot of the research that we offer is about that kind of advisory capacity and sending people to the right places, and also providing an environment environment statement in the research application for what is available at Leeds that can support those projects. We spend a lot of time sending them, as I say, to the research data teams, the collections teams, high-powered computing and research software engineering, and the web team. And we're tending to get queries increasingly about storage, reproducibility, archiving, digital archiving. So that's kind of where a lot of our work sits. We've been developing sections of our website to address this, so where you get training and support. If you're at the University of Leeds and you're engaged in research and you think you might want support, this is the section of our website where you can find our consultation request form. So essentially what happens is that's just a bit of a triage form for my purposes. So that comes to me and it asks you questions about the nature of your research, the nature of your skill level, a kind of experience you've had before, what sort of support you want. And we're also developing a space on the web page, which is still relatively new, for digital tools. So different areas of practice. And for example, this is the page on archiving databasing. It's kind of directing you to what you can use particular tools for, what the licensing requirements are, whether it's open or if it's something that's proprietary, where you can get support, whether it's something Leeds supports. So those are the kind of resources that we've been building up as well as part of what we offer. So this is the important bit, obviously, for today. So that was my pitch of come to us at the University of Leeds for your digital research needs. But this is today's session. So this is coming out of our internship project that's been really exciting and successful, I think, although we're not at the end of the first year, but it's proved really illuminating. And when we developed this, we wanted specifically to pair students with very different skills on collaborative projects. So Lili and Sam, who you're going to hear from shortly, come from different schools within the Faculty of Arts, Humanities and Cultures, and some of our pairings have actually paired students from the Faculty of Arts and the Faculty of Engineering. So we've got, for example, kind of classicists and robotics students. We've got architectural engineers with design students. So the 5 project strands that we had were the Digital Makers strand, which is about building digital skills for young people. And that team are working with the Raspberry Pi Foundation on kind of code clubs in the Bradford region. We've got pair working on the International Image Interoperability format, which if you were up on your open research, you will know is an open format for essentially a kind of GLAM sector format for imaging, heritage imaging particularly, that allows kind of reuse, remixing, all sorts of interesting plugins. So those interns are particularly working on trialling both imaging techniques to create IIIF images, but also kind of harnessing that reproducible, sustainable and accessible formats in their projects. We've got a team working on the John Bedford Furniture Collection as part of the Special Collections strand, which is a collection at the University of Leeds. This has just been kind of had the big exhibition launch of the material collections, and those students are working on ways of bringing that to life digitally through things like 3D imaging, through some mapping projects. So they're just playing with different approaches. The Welcoming Migrants team are opening up the University Art Collections are already open, but trying to imbue with a sense of openness those collections, particularly with a view to welcoming migrant communities onto campus, allowing them to feel comfortable and able to access those here. And then our fifth strand, which is what you're going to be hearing about today, is the collections as data strand. So what Sam and Lili have been doing with support from myself and Jodie Double, who is the digitisation and copyright manager for special collections here at the University of Leeds, is that they've been playing with special collections as data sets, so treating them as things to be kind of remixed and reimagined in different ways that they're going to tell you about. And they've particularly gone for collections that are kind of publicly available, so anyone could have done this work. So they've chosen things that are kind of open and accessible, and what can be done when you start using particularly kind of machine learning techniques. So there's some AI tools that they're working with, and seeing how that can both aid things like collections description, but also things like transcription. I won't say too much more about what they've actually been doing, because I want Sam and Lili to explain that for themselves. But just to say that with all of these internships, we've given the interns a really broad brief, because we wanted to see where their interests lay and also what they would come up with. So I just want to say that although Jodie and I are normally the mentors in this project, we can't really take that much credit for the creativity and ideas that the interns have brought to this. And this is absolutely driven by kind of their interests and what they've wanted to explore, both in terms of content and in terms of methods. And I think I will leave my part of it there and hand over to Sam, who is going to talk about his part of the project first of all.
Okay, hello, I'm Sam. Okay, I need to switch to. Can anyone see this currently? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that's fine, Sam.
Okay, so hello everyone, I'm Sam. I'm from the School of Music and I'm currently studying music psychology year 1 and I'm from Hong Kong. And it's my first time working with people other than Chinese, to be honest. But it's like today I'm gonna introduce you about the collection as data, the project that I'm currently working on. So first of all, I'm gonna introduce like our main aims of it. So about the objectives and about our projects and how do we involve data with AI. It's like how do we take all those collections as a data set to play with AI or to experiment with them. And then last of all, I will share about some of the reflections and some of the limitations I've encountered throughout the whole internships. So about our objectives, I've made an acronyms is IDEA, which I stand for interactivity, which we try to interact those kind of outcomes with different audience and also like different users of the special collections. And by the way, special collections are like the collections that are only available in our university. So we are gonna to play with that and then to make it something useful. And then the discoverability is to allow more people to discover the things more easily. And in the special collection site, there's like digital information and some of them are not digitized yet as well. And then I'm trying to make all the things that are currently you can just access it without the bookings to make it more like easier to discover for every people or users of the library site. And then engagement is to engage the data set with different sorts of AI. So it's like AI, yeah. And then the accessibility is like to enhance people understanding towards it. So these are our projects, and I'm currently working on the Bingley Photographic Archives and also the Chinese collections. And my colleagues Lili are working on the Cookery Collections, which I'll pass it to her later on. So first of all, I'm going to introduce you one of the special collection that I try to experiment with is the Godfrey Bingley Photographic Archives, which I embed a link here. And then they are all like digitized and shown on the special collection websites and publicly access is available. And I'm trying to use different sort of AI to use with it. But first of all, these are the formats that display on the sites, which they use IIIF manifest. And then they are like they're like a set of standard, as I reckoned. And then but the problem is like through these are my AI involvement, and the problem is like during the trivia test there's like some sort of like format in available because I need to upload some sort of photo to the platform. So this is my trivia test, and then how the progress of how I made it is like I picked a photo throughout the collection sets of Bingley collections, and mostly about Yorkshire. And then because of like library website only provide the IIIF manifest, so therefore I made like a little coding to translate them into a JPG files right there. And then hence I just put it into the platform. And then afterwards I need to source for real life location through different AI. I've tried with Picasa, which one of my experiment is to try to use this AI to guess the location, but I'm gonna colorize the black and white picture with this photo AI. And then it turns out it's more inaccurate after coloring it because the AI just automatically adjusts to guess the time frame is too more modern. And nowadays there's no more trams in Leeds. And then that makes for like an inaccurate guess. They guess it like a Sheffield or Manchester. But anyway, and then after putting this kind of things, and then I need to put on GeoGuessr quiz mode, which allows people to just answer this question and guess, which is more similar to a game called Time Guesser, which there's like a photograph on the middle of the scene, and then you need to just pinpoint the locations, and then also like guess the time frame, but I didn't make that one yet. But you need to pinpoint the location here, and then because of some sort of like function limitations, I need to make another blank mode script on it. It's a JS script I didn't show here, but the this how it like is to play. It's just guess which part of Yorkshire the pictures is in, and then just blindly guess where the location is here in the map, and then you need to achieve like some sort of score right here. Okay, another things I try to interact with is the historical photo sleuth, which is supported by ChatGPT. The function of this thing I created is to guess where a picture is located by real life location, but unfortunately, because of some sort of like limitations of Google or some sort of like mapping software, ChatGPT can't access and share those kind of data with anyone else through the chatbot. So therefore, they could just analyze the whole architectural features or some words behind. Like in the picture, it demonstrates it's like the advertisement of teaser, which is like on the tram, and then they just to try to guess it's in British town. And then I didn't show the final results of this picture, but it's like it did guess some sort of like industrial town, and this whole thing is still in progress and is still working on. But it's quite successful in recognizing these kind of landmarks as showed here. This is York Minster, and then the AI can correctly guess is the Great East Window. Because of the current limitations on the special collections, the coordinations are not really accurate. So, but the thing is, I can't actually edit the whole coordination due to some of the limitations. So I'm gonna just ends up with some sort of work like specific landmarks behind, or like anything that is significant to recognize a part or a side of a building. Okay, so this is like a ChatGPT basic database I use, but in these historical photos sleuth, they can like store some sort of like database behind. So it's become more like if I showed this picture once again, but I told him the correct answer before, they will recognize it somehow. And then another plan I try to work on is the OpenAI API, which is for data training, which you send some sort of request to the OpenAI API and then they send some sort of information to you. And that's the thing I'm trying to like send through and then try to enhance if they can having better geolocation recognizing, not geolocation, or just location recognizing. Okay, afterwards I'm going to introduce you my another project, which is the Chinese project. It is aimed to make a language book because like I find it quite interested me because it's like Chinese characters is formed by different sort of pictures. So therefore it's like if you can recognize some sort of picture and then saw their evolutions, you somehow recognize the meaning of the Chinese word. So I'm trying to make that more easily assessed and more easily to be understood by different people. And then during the Easter break, I went to Hong Kong Chinese University and then meet up with some of the colleagues, which we have some sort of connection with, I guess. Yeah. And then they have recommended me two of the AI to use for this, which one of them is called GJ Cool. It's like the working mode is like transcribers, which Lili will introduce to you more briefly later, which is like the AI saw the word on the paper and then they would just guess the word. It's not guess, they just according to the stroke and then to make the word out. And then in the right here you can see there's like an accuracy rate, which is for the one that closer to 1 is like the more accurate it is. But if it's like 0.05, it will be like less likely to be the word and it's inaccurate. But these words are generated by AI, and these 1.1 is like by human editing. So that's why there's some sort of like higher than expected score here. But these are quite, I mean, some of the word they detect quite likely to be, but I didn't work on it too much, to be honest, but there's like enough of the data we can work on it. Like, and then there's like a Taiwan group. It's like for OCR, and they did have a higher accuracy, but currently I'm still applying for the usage of it, so I can't demonstrate any work for here. But the same things is this behind the same theory. It's like they just according to the stroke and then to push up which letters or which characters that is. So before moving on to Cookery Collections, I'm gonna to share some of my reflections and limitations on the project. I'm glad that this is my first time working in like a whole English speaking atmosphere, and then I quite enjoy it because everyone is so helpful and so friendly. And then different support are very more than enough, and I'm so glad that I work here. But only limitations are most likely the technical difficulties, I would say, because like as I mentioned, the ChatGPT can't share some of the Google database, which makes some sort of limitations on updating the coordinations on the annotated in the Bingley collections that are quite inaccurate. So I'm now passing on to Lili to introduce you the Cookery Collections.
Hello everyone. I will just share my screen with you. Hope everyone can see my slides. So I'll just introduce myself quickly before we begin. My name is Lili Jaber and I'm working on the project with Sam, as he mentioned, and I decided to go in a completely different direction, and I was really interested in the Cookery Collection, in the special collections at University of Leeds. So that's the data that I decided to work with and focus on creating more accessible and engaging. So just to give you a little bit of context about the collection itself, there's a picture on the slide here of one of the recipe books, one of the recipe manuscripts, which I actually ended up using for my project. So the Cookery Collection contains printed, archival and digital material, and it relates mainly to food and cooking, things like recipes that date all the way back to ancient Egypt. And it has over 9,000 items, which obviously include the handwritten recipes as shown on the slide here, but it also includes things like medicinal cures for both humans and animals, books about housekeeping, and also, interestingly, historical etiquette tips for women, which I really recommend that you go and check out. It's very interesting. So for the project, I decided to focus on the recipe manuscripts, as shown on the slide here, mainly because in terms of open data and access, it would be easiest in terms of them already being digitalized. So I had that access to them. I was able to use them from the get-go. And although many of them are in digital formats, I felt that there's possibly limited engagement with them because of the fact that they have quite difficult to read handwriting, and a lot of them are quite long. So my aims in the project were to make it into a format which was more engaging. So what I decided to do first was to find a way to convert them into text format. So I did this using a platform called Transcribus. So just to give you a little bit of background on how to use Transcribus and how I used it to transcribe the recipe manuscripts. So it's a fairly intuitive platform. You upload your documents as single page images, and you can upload a big collection of them. And the software platform itself has many models that you can use for text and layout recognition. And these are models that have actually been trained with thousands of texts already, so their accuracy is fairly high. And I used one of the models on there called the English Eagle. And when I first started using it for transcription, it wasn't as accurate as towards the end, when I had done around 30, 40, 50 pages of transcription. And that was when it started to get better at recognizing text and the handwriting itself. So as you can see on the slide here, this is a picture of what it looks like when it's recognized the text. It recognizes both text and layout together. So you can see that it's really accurately found all the lines and been quite accurate with the transcription as well. I think this was probably one of the later pages that I did. I did still have to go through and change some of the small errors that it had made. It also gives you the options to tag specific words or phrases. So you can enable the tag setting on there, so you can do this. And then you can tag words with locations, clarity, whether they're an abbreviation, and you can also add like little comments on the side so that you can go back to it and remind yourself of something. And you can also note where there's damage on a page as well, which is really useful. And then if you would like to create your own model, you can take that collection of transcribed pages, and you can, I used around 50 pages, I think, in the end for my model, and you can actually train your own model on there. So I would recommend probably using one style of handwriting first. And if you're using various handwriting styles, then you can add more pages of transcriptions to make it more accurate. And once you've trained that model, you can also make that public for other people to use as well, or you can just continue using it on your own projects. So once I had those transcriptions, I had that text that I was ready to analyze and decide what I wanted to do with to make it sort of more engaging and more accessible to people. So what I decided I wanted to do was actually make a digital cookbook using the transcriptions. And as Sam previously mentioned, we had these project objectives which we wanted to reach. And I wanted it to be engaging by being easily shareable. I also wanted to include higher quality images to show people what the recipes might have actually looked like back then, but give it a bit of a modern feel. I wanted to make it more interactive, so I wanted to embed links and things like videos, make it easily searchable and navigatable. I also wanted to make it more discoverable, so give it more of a sense of online searchability and potentially cross-platform availability in the future as well. And I'm still looking to add features like language translation and potentially audio to speech features to increase that sense of accessibility for different users. So in terms of after I'd done the transcriptions, I had to summarize them so that I could sort of modernize them before I put them into the cookbook. So obviously the language used in the cookbook was different in the 18th century as it is today. So what I did was I also used ChatGPT, and I prepared a prompt that I gave it every time I wanted it to summarize the recipes for me. So you can see here that it summarized this recipe here, the stag's bath seed cake, and it basically just gave me the ingredients and the quantities that it mentioned. And it summarized the steps and modernized it a little bit, but it still kept a lot of the same language that was used. So sometimes I had to go back and check that it was really understandable and engaging to a reader. It also included suggestions of things like how long it takes to prepare and how long it takes to cook, which was really useful, and I added that into my cookbook as well. And then here is a screenshot of 2 of the pages from the actual cookbook itself. So the way that I created this was using a platform which many of you might be familiar with called Canva, which is essentially a graphic design platform. And that's the way I arranged all the images and the text and everything. And I was able to do it page by page like that. And these images are actually AI generated images, of course, because in the recipe manuscripts, there weren't any images or even any drawings or anything like that in the books that I'd worked with. So it was a case of using a software called GenCraft, and also Canva has a similar software as well, where you can input a summary of the recipe, and it will give you these images based on that, on what it might have looked like. So it's an interesting combination of the historical modern feel. And you can see that I've got 2 recipes here, one for cream flummery and one for their mince pies. And I just want to briefly change my window to show you. So this is the actual flip book that I ended up creating, which is still a work in progress. And so Canva essentially has like a collaboration with Hayzine Flipbooks, which is where I made this. So you can get what you've made on Canva and you can export it over to Hayzine, and it makes it into this nice sort of flipbook format, which you can flip through all the pages of it. So it looks like that. And as I mentioned with the sort of embedded interactive features, what I did do is things like linking the actual recipe manuscript book where the recipes came from, so people understand what they're reading and where it's come from. So if you click on this link, it should take you to the original Special Collections document where I got it from. So there we go. And you can actually go on that book and you can flick through it, and you can really understand more where these recipes have come from, and you can see all the metadata here as well, of course. And if you click on this link here, which is what I'm going to be embedding to most of the pages, I think, it will take you to the actual recipe itself that's on that page. So you can see here, this is a IIIF image that I've uploaded to Internet Archive. And it says to make an orange pudding here on the top. So you can see how I've tried to link the sort of historical document and modernize it a little bit more, but still keep the feel of that combination of the two, and make it into a resource which more people can access, and it's a bit more engaging as well. I'll just flick through a few more of these. So you can see we've got red quince marmalade. A few more of the features I'm looking to embed are things like where it says here, find out what you want to eat this with. I'm thinking of doing like a slideshow feature where it can show different recipes that you might want to use that actual marmalade in and give some suggestions. Sharing on social media, also things like ingredient substitution for people who might need like gluten-free, things like that, who have dietary requirements. I'd like to embed some of those features as well. So I'll just go back to my PowerPoint. So in terms of just some reflections, because that's kind of where I've got to in the internship right now, the stage where I'm at. For me, as I'm from the School of English originally, and I'm in my third year, learning about AI and how to use new software and things like transcribers I'd never done before. So it's all been a bit of a learning curve for me, but I've really enjoyed the experimentation and also just like the freedom that we were given for our creativity and everything that we wanted to do. And the cookbook is something that I really enjoy making now. In terms of some challenges with the project, we did briefly have some page restriction challenges because Transcribus only allows you to have on a non-premium account 100 pages per month. But we soon got ahead of that with some licensing. Also experimenting with model creation, which I'm still in the process of doing now. So I'm still experimenting with the accuracy of the model that I'm creating and increasing the number of pages needed for that and trying different styles of handwriting and seeing how they compare. Generation of accurate AI images. Obviously, it's hard to imagine how it would have looked like back then. But it's interesting to compare these different softwares like GenCraft and the AI on Canva and see how they generate AI images similarly or differently. Also being consistent with the prompts given to ChatGPT for summarizing the recipes. So seeing where it had actually retained some of the language that was used in the recipes and seeing where it changed it was really interesting, especially in terms of like things like quantity words and what methods were used. So yeah, I think that comes to the end of my presentation. Thank you all for listening, and we welcome any questions that you might have. I will stop sharing. So I'll answer a question from Paula on the chat. I hope I'm pronouncing that okay. Thank you. Given the recipes come from 18th century texts, did you try to source images of drawings closer to that period, or was it deliberate to have modern images? So the actual recipe book, which my cookbook is based on right now, didn't have any drawings or anything in there. And at the moment, that's the only book that I've used. I'm looking to use some different recipe books in the future as well. But a lot of these special collections from what I've seen don't have the drawings. In terms of using other 18th century drawings, that might be something that I can do if I can find some similar recipes which have similar drawings attached. I'd love to include some of those in the cookbook just so people can compare. But the main sort of aim was to modernize it and to use AI. I think that was my sort of objective from the get-go, but I'd still like to retain those historical features where I can as well. Hope that answers your question.
Do you want to take some questions, Cassie, or I usually do it, or I don't know if you wanted to chair.
No, if you want to chair, Nick, that would be great.
Because I was just blown away by both of those presentations. It was really amazing work. But yeah, there was a couple of questions that have come through, but do keep posting them. I did just have one question of my own. Have you actually yet tried any of the recipes? Have you made any of them yet? No?
Not yet. That's what I'm hoping to do this summer though, because I do want to put some images of my creations and see how it actually turns out. I'm sure it'll be very different to what we all imagine.
And where are you going to source the pigeons, I suppose?
Yeah, I don't think I'll be trying that one.
I don't fancy that one. A question perhaps for you, Cassie, because it goes back to your part of the presentation when you were mentioning some of the other work that DCCH has done. From Lara, what did the Transcription Archival Skills Project involve, and what other collaborative projects have you done with special collections?
So the Transcription Archival Skills session is actually coming up on the 14th of May. So if anybody, and the idea, I suppose, behind that, I'm very aware that like there have been things kind of going on in terms of introducing people to things like corpus methods and things that kind of assume a pre-familiarity with actually the mechanics of how you create transcriptions and how you might think about markup, and you might think about preparing documents for digital editions. But we were really aware that there were people who may be interested in doing that but didn't actually have the vocabulary from that kind of introductory level of like, how do you go about even creating a transcription? What are the elements that you can then, I guess, leverage to, for example, have things tagged and categorized within the actual document itself? How do you make something computer readable? So when we talk about a digital edition, what do we mean? So that's coming up, and that's going to be a very hands-on kind of workshop where people are going to have a go at doing that. There have been existing projects in special collections where they have, for example, experimented with Transcribus, and they've kind of pitted Transcribus against a notional set of archivists, and like, is it actually efficient for special collections to use this versus things like crowdsourced transcriptions? I wasn't part of those experiments because they were before I joined the university, but I know that Tim Proctor, for example, would very happily talk to people about some of those experiments, and there are other members of the special collections team who've been involved in that. And I think it's always a balance, isn't it? Because what Lili talked about with, so Transcribus is an auto-transcribing AI-powered platform, and how you balance that against like the amount of work you have to put in to tune it. So Lili's been working with a single hand, so you can kind of fine tune for a single hand and get really accurate. But when you've got a huge mass of documents, like say you've got a set of correspondence, that actually the labor of somebody correcting it might not be worth it, when you could just have that same person probably doing a transcription almost at the same speed. But the bigger and bigger the documents get, or the larger the collections get, then you start seeing the returns. So it was interesting. Yeah, and similarly, I would say there has been a project in special collections to try and identify locations in some of the Bingley archive that Sam's been experimenting with, and seeing if, you know, AI could be instrumentalized to speed that process up. Obviously, there are limitations at the moment in terms of, I guess, the openness and access of those collections. Is that fair to say, Sam, in terms of what you can connect to?
Okay. Wait, I got questions here first.
Yeah. So yeah, it might lead into Simon's question actually in the chat, in terms of what you think your work might mean for automating catalogue descriptions, because obviously that's sort of what we were moving towards with Bingley, wasn't it? Like, how can we get the information about? You had quite a playful kind of gamified version, but really it's about getting to the information about where those locations are.
It's like, is it like how do AI get more information from it, from like just only the data sets? So it's like data can, I mean, those kind of collections can act as little data sets, and then you need to like type in some of the information to the AI bot for them to absorb some sort of like information from it. But the problem currently is like, because of like the only information that AI can absorb is just all the information they can see through the pictures, which are like the architectural styles and the words. And so I need the thing that for automating the description is like, you need to train the whole AI engineering to like more to recognize each other things instead. Like because like you may need to some sort of like sharing some of the comparison to them for them to enhance the guessing. So therefore it's like more work may need to be done through it to do the automating catalog description by like typing through the AI chat things. Yeah.
I just
And there
missed. So I was just wanted to. Sorry, Cassie, do you want to carry on that?
I was gonna, there was then a sub question for Lily, but we'll move on. You go first.
I was
then
just
we'll
conscious that I'd
answer.
missed Lara's question about where you'll make the recipe book available. Will it be on that platform, Lily, that you showed us that you actually created it with?
Yeah, I think so. It depends if I end up using that platform till the end or not, because I've been experimenting with some other flipbook platforms as well. But the Hazine one, which I was demonstrating, does give you a shareable link that you can just share wherever, social media or by email or anywhere.
Obviously,
So
everybody wants to have a look at the cookbook. So obviously, I know it's not finished yet.
I can almost guarantee as the webmaster for the DCCH website that we will probably be putting it up there somewhere as well. We might have to fight with the Special Collections website over that. But yeah, so what we're going to do at the end of the internships is have a showcase event, but also hopefully kind of an online space where we can show some of the projects we've been doing. So by the end of the academic year, that should be online somewhere. So the internships run I think theoretically to the end of August, although most of the work is planned to kind of wind up really by the end of July, and then we can spend some time reflecting. But yes, by the next academic year, you'll be able to view all of our project results. I'm committing myself to it now, all of our project results on our website somewhere. But some of the students are actually building other platforms. So they're building their own web galleries, or they're building kind of virtual spaces. But we'll have somewhere central that definitely links out to all of that if you want to know more.
Yeah, no, I certainly do. There's a slightly technical question that I'll come to in a moment about FAIR principles. That might be one for me and Rachel, actually, another colleague of mine from the data team on there. And I think that might be an interesting discussion for us, actually, Cassie. So, but I just before that, questions for Sam and Lily, similar question, really, whether or not you had an idea of which collection you wanted to work with before the internships began.
for me, I was between anything that really had language that I could analyze, or audio, because I'm really interested in language use. But the Cookery Collection is one that stood out to me at the start of the internship, just because I thought that the range of everything that it had on there, like I mentioned, with like etiquette tips for women, and I just loved looking through the recipes as well. So I knew that I wanted to do something with that. But the digital cookbook idea came a lot later on, after I had done the transcriptions, because what I'm also looking to do with the transcriptions is analyze the language use in the recipes as well. So looking at things like the language of the quantities and the methods and the different tools, and potentially comparing different recipes in different points of time, and the language use between them as well.
For me, I was kind of intrigued by the I forgot intangible cultural heritage, which I have worked on in Hong Kong before. Conducted a class which used Minecraft to like teach children's what is intangible cultural heritage. And then because of that course I conducted, it really intrigued me on working something else forward about that. But I'm not sure about the culture's heritage in England, to be honest. But also I'm quite intrigued by some sort of like Canto culture where I live in, like Hong Kong. Those kind of culture really intrigue me, but I know it's not really necessary to get some sort of like a lot resources from Leeds. And therefore I'm also intrigued by like linguistic as some sort of innovated by Lili. Yeah, she taught me how good is language, and yeah, it's somehow motivated me to work on the Chinese project, because like that. And then the photographic one is like, because like I some sort of like to take photographs out there, so I mean, when Cassie and Sam mentioned about the Bingley collections, I was like, okay, yeah, I can try to make use of that. And then, yeah, the whole thing just like this, yeah.
I'll
I might
just
also,
sorry.
oh, sorry, Lily. I just wanted to flag as well that the interns we have, we didn't appoint interns, interns didn't apply to specific projects, they just applied to be interns, and then we put them on strands. So neither Sam nor Lily specifically applied for collections as data. I think you'd expressed an interest, Lily, in your interview, hadn't you? But it was we were very much kind of threw you at it as a concept and went, good luck. What do you want to do? And so we did kind of try and provide some corners in terms of collections that might be interesting, but really kind of wanted it to be driven very much by the interest of the interns themselves.
Mm. I mean, Yasmin's asked a similar question, but she's also asking, which I think you've alluded to, but were the care principles factored into that selection? By the care principles, I presume are you referring to the Indigenous data management principles? I don't know if others can comment on that question, or if Yasmin wants to clarify.
I'd find a clarification of that because I'm not familiar with that.
Well, that's what
so
my
that'd be really
assumption, because
useful.
I only know care in the context of the FAIR and care principles. So FAIR data and care data is the data management issues around Indigenous governance data, which is, I think she's just clarifying that's what she does mean. So she posted a link there. So I'm guessing that didn't formally factor into that, but might be. So it's something that we've actually been discussing in our team in research data. I can't say that, you know what I mean? The care principles in the context of also FAIR. So I mean, that's perhaps a difficult question from Alison that I'm not sure we can answer now, but it might be interesting just to explore. She's asking how the projects are integrating with the FAIR principles, as many of the idea objectives, so the acronym that Sam mentioned and that Lily mentioned, seem in alignment with the FAIR principles. Is that something you've thought about explicitly, Cassie, or Lily?
I mean, so I'm more familiar with the FAIR principles and the care principles, and so broadly speaking, in terms of the remit of what DCCH does with, working with collections to try to promote research that is open, that findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, which is why we've been working with formats like IIIF. For this particular, so other parts of the internship have been more focused on, particularly the IIIF internship has been more focused on that kind of reusability and accessibility. And I think this one has focused on, well, this is the data that is available openly, and how can we remix it and engage? But I think it is with a view to, make, doing it in a way that is, I suppose, the findability comes down to other routes of pointing things towards it. I'm not sure this is quite in line with FAIR in a very explicit sense, but I think it sort of informs broadly the principles of what we try and do in the centre. But making the data, for example, of the cookbooks available in computer readable format is one of the ways that I suppose that we're trying to make it interoperable, definitely, and making it usable for others. So these manuscripts are openly available. You can get to them on the website, but there isn't necessarily transcription for all of them. So that kind of moves it more towards that position. It's a good question. It's one
and I'd be interested in exploring. I don't know if you've got any more thoughts on that, Alison, that you'd like to either put in the chat or come on the mic, even, because one of the things we've talked about in the past, for example. So I'm based in the research data team, so we assign DOIs for data sets, etc. So special collections currently doesn't have any DOIs assigned to data sets, etc. So there's probably work for us to do across the library in that kind of area. But I don't know, Alison, if you've got any other thought.
That's really all I was going to say in response to what Cassandra just said anyway, is that the easiest way to gain that findability in one fell swoop is to mint DOIs for all of the lovely work that the people in the projects here have been doing. So DOIs for any of the data that they're going to be using ultimately to publish. And so whether that's the variety of the corpus that they're using, or the transcripts, or the raw, I presume the original images of, for example, the cookbook, are already in your institutional repository somewhere, so they already have DOIs, but the work that they're actually doing, they don't.
That's the point I was making, really, because that's a discussion, because it's a different part of the library. So special collections, we have a data we look after, that we do assign DOIs for research data, But there is an ongoing discussion. You can imagine, I'm sure you have similar issues with a big library and different parts of it doing different things with different, different infrastructure and all this kind of stuff. So that's certainly something for us to pick up.
Yes, but that you know, ultimately it's hard, isn't it, to know, but it's certainly data that would deserve a DOI because it's persistent, it's going to be unchanging. Those
and as
images
Rachel's
in the files.
pointing out, my colleague, other PIDs are available. But yeah, we
Yeah, oh yeah, sorry, other PIDs, ARCs, RRIDs, I have a whole list of identifiers.
Not to put you on the spot, Rachel, but there is a discussion we've had in the past, isn't it, around DOIs with special collections. We haven't had it for a little while. I don't know if you can recall the conversation.
This might be a question for all sorts of library services that work with special collections, because it was partly about granularity and also, as you say, where the materials are located. So we've got quite a mixed economy at the university. We're probably not untypical, where you have quite a lot of digital resources that are looked after by the special collections within maybe a closed collection, or you know, it's in the process of being opened up. They might have some identifiers against them, not necessarily digital object identifiers that you register with the data site service or similar. So there's the question of granularity and also which PID is the most appropriate. So a DOI might be, but then we need to think about what the landing page is, and is it one landing page for a bunch of stuff? You know, in terms of the overhead of management for DOIs, each DOI comes with some management responsibility and long-term preservation responsibility and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely a conversation we started, but it's one that, like you're saying, we need to pick up again, and there might be a few different issues to tease out there, perhaps.
Yeah, it's an interesting issue, and certainly one that I am interested in sort of pursuing a little bit more. So for if you think about institutions, you have a university, they have an institutional repository, and all data produced by staff members goes in the repository and gets a DOI, and that's very straightforward, and that's more, I think, what Nick is talking about. And then there's the digitized collections, which are just coming online in greater and greater numbers over the years, you know, as people bring in the information from their museums and libraries. And I think that sort of it's a discussion worth having. I was just looking very quickly at a particular example I'd seen, and you're right, I'm looking at some images from, is it Queen Victoria's journals, and they don't have DOIs. So that's very similar content to the cookbook recipes that you guys are using. And I think they're worthy of some kind of persistent identifier, but you're right, there is a question around preservation and what happens in regards to that, and having preservation policies in place and things like that. Hopefully you can lean on your institution and incorporate their preservation policies into the work, but it's a longer discussion, one that I find interesting. I won't derail it anymore, because it's, you know.
Well, no, that's great. Thank you very much. Thank you for, you know, and obviously I'd be very happy to have further conversations offline, but I think we are just about at time, aren't we, Cassie? I'll stop the recording now, just in case anybody was unwilling to speak while it was being recorded.